Hello and welcome to Season 12, Episode 4 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I'm Mark Bishop.
We are, of course, reading Alan Bloom's The Closing of the American Mind, How Higher Education Has Failed Democracy and Impoverished the Souls of Today's Students. This time, talking about his chapter on relationships. And you're already yawning.
I've had a long...
You seem very interested in this chapter.
Well, we've been off for 2 weeks, I think.
Yes, well, we were off last week.
Yeah, but for 2 weeks. We've been off for 2 weeks.
No, we've been off for 1 week. We've missed 1 week, but it's been 2 weeks since the last episode.
We have not been on for 2 weeks.
No, that would imply that we've missed 2 weeks of episodes.
Anyway, so I read this
Yes.
a long time ago.
About a week ago.
Longer than that. Actually, I read it early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
impressive.
now I'm suffering from... This is why you always procrastinate. You should always procrastinate to the last minute so it's fresh in your mind.
That's good advice.
Yes.
That's very good advice, yeah.
Forever. So this chapter is about relationships.
Yes. So he's looking at all of the different types of relationships and essentially just tracking where he thinks things have gone wrong in sort of modern society.
And for the college students
For
in
college
particular.
students in particular,
right?
yeah, because he's focusing specifically on education, but a lot of these are these, problems that have come up within his lifetime is kind of what he's writing about.
Yeah, true.
And the first is, as he describes it, as self-centeredness.
Yes.
He says...
well, can we talk just in general terms? I mean, we're going to cover the first half of this chapter.
Yes, that's true. We're splitting this one in two.
Because it's like 40-something pages. So do you have any general thoughts about the first half of the book?
I thought it was really good. I mean, I think he's spot on with his description of, even just like the first sentence, which I was just about to read. He says, students these days are in general nice. I choose the word carefully. They're not particularly moral or noble. Such niceness is a facet of democratic character when times are good. And he goes on to talk about that a little bit more. But I mean, he's very, I think, pointed and very accurate in his descriptions here. Later on, especially when he talks about equality, and his discussion on race is really interesting as well, talking about the race relations on universities. Now, those have changed, like, during his lifetime.
Yes.
I think he paints an accurate picture. And, of course,
Well, it's only gotten worse since he wrote this.
Oh, yeah.
So the first subsection of this section
Yes.
is self-centeredness.
Yes.
I think he is 100% correct with the first sentence that you read, and I think it's true. It's like a religious dogma.
Yeah.
That you have to be nice. Whether you actually are good is irrelevant. Whether you are honest is irrelevant.
As long as you're nice.
You have
it's
to be
okay.
nice. Yeah. And I've struggled with that my entire life.
You've struggled with the dogma, or you've struggled with being nice?
Well, yeah, with both, but especially the nice part, because if you define nice, it means be pleasant and accommodating.
Yes,
and don't upset people. And sometimes being honest will upset people, and being nice is a form of cruelty. And I think the niceness is what allowed the transgender thing to get so out of control.
Yeah, that was one thing, because he has a section, I think we'll get to it this episode, but on sex and like gender and everything like that. And he's like, that's just not even a topic. I don't know if he could ever have predicted just how rampant that would have been, the transgender issue. I mean, especially on college campuses. I mean, you just had no way of knowing that was a thing on the horizon back in the 80s.
Right. Well, and I think his evaluation of this niceness issue and the self-centeredness issue and the lack of depth, and I think I'm going to elaborate a little bit further. I think it really explains the rise of Trump, because I think Trump is a reactionary response to this artificial niceness in society. And that's why so many people just don't care about, like, the infamous grab him by the tape. People are just like, we just don't care anymore. Yeah. Because you're being nice all the time while not being good.
Yeah, I think that's especially what propelled him, in the 2016 election, because he was just so different from everybody else. He was like, I don't care. I don't need to be nice. I don't want to follow your sort of made-up rules about these sorts of things. And that was definitely appealing then.
And quite frankly, the niceness was really one-sided. It's like we had to be nice, or they didn't have to be nice. Or some people had to be nice, other people didn't have to, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I think it goes on the next page. The author says, the top of 83, students these days are pleasant, friendly, and if not great-souled, at least not particularly mean-spirited. Their primary preoccupation is themselves, understood in the narrowest sense. And boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
There's such self-centeredness of our college age and our youth. And of course now, I think this was true then, and now 20 years later, he's talking about my generation, I think, really. Maybe, probably because I was going through college in the late 80s, early 90s. And I think that's part of the problem that my generation had. We've kind of inherited these lessons from the despicable baby boomer generation.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I really like, because he kind of diagnoses the problem as they don't have any problems.
Yes.
Right? He says, their religion, their origin doesn't really affect their careers. What you believe won't really have an impact on sort of the opportunities available. He tells the story about this, I guess, as a wife of one of the officials of the administration. She says, these students don't really have much ambition, things like that. And he asks her, well, why do you think that is? She says, well, it's the fear of nuclear war.
Yeah.
Because he's writing this in 1987. He says, well, then he asked his students, are you afraid of nuclear war? And they laugh at him. He's like, well, no, of course not. That's not a problem we're really concerned about at all. He says they really just don't have a massive driving force. And I know we've talked about that on the podcast before, that there's no mission in America.
Correct.
And clearly not since the past 40 years, if you kind of believe what he's describing here. There hasn't been that driving pressure to do much of anything, really.
Yeah, well, it's not just pressure; it's a motivation, a goal,
right?
Some higher purpose as a nation or a society. And that you scoff at the nuclear war thing. That was hyped up in the 80s.
Yeah.
It says, earlier 60s and 70s more so, but before the fall of the Soviet Union, it was a live issue.
Right.
There was enough nuclear weapons, and I think it was before my time where they had. You have a tornado drill. They used to have nuclear bomb drills.
Right.
They'd have to hide under the desk. Not really. That's gonna make a difference, but good, I guess. But the more modern version, I think, is the climate.
Yeah.
Climate crisis. Yeah. Oh, we have to do this to save the planet. In maybe 500 years when it goes up a quarter of a degree or something.
Yeah, I think that's, you do sort of have some of those big fears, but really concentrated, I think, mostly on the left. And it's just moving from one to the other without really any correlation between them. And we've talked about that in the past. It's the climate change people are the same people as the pro-Palestine people, are the same people as the pro-transgenderism people. And every single one of those is, when you hear them talk about it, a world-ending crisis. Correct. If not treated seriously. But it's every single one of them. Yeah. And so it's kind of all lumped together. But I don't think a lot of people really buy that. I think you get the people who are very far left really believe that, but there's no overarching... I don't know that
they really believe it either.
You don't think so?
No, because when you get into the details of it, it's it kind of reminds me of the priests during COVID, where they're like, oh, we can't say mass because we might get sick. Are you even Catholic? You're a priest and you're scared of death?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Those priests that were so scared, of course, they're almost always left of center, but it's you're not even Christian.
Yeah.
In your attitudes even. It's
you should put that above everything else.
Yeah. So these climate people, it's always everybody else should do it or the government should do it.
Right.
But they still have their phones. They still, fly places, and their mom and dad, send them to Europe for a summer. They'll fly there and they use up all their car. They're not living in a shack in the woods, living off the land.
Yeah. I will say, for the record, it was 8 minutes before you brought up COVID.
Well, you know what? It's not an official subtopic, but I think we have an official subtopic of Tolkien. And you haven't brought up Tolkien in weeks.
I guess not, yeah.
So, you have to get on your game.
Well, I can work him in at any time.
Well, I in my defense, I just saw a blurb of an interview by Sean Ryan of that despicable Gavin Newsom, as Trump would call him. And he was answering a question about his Sean Ryan's ex-military podcaster. Yeah. And he asked him a question that he said was texted him by Joe Rogan, asking about, why did you mandate vaccines for children when there was no scientific basis for it? And he bobbed and weaved and danced about it.
Right.
So it was kind of fresh in my mind right before I came
that's
in.
Good. That's good.
But I think that's a seminal event. But in any event, these people don't really believe in it.
Right.
They
kind of mentions
say it's
that.
a crisis, but they just act like it's a crisis because they have to believe in something. I mean, a religion.
Right.
Their family isn't really that tight, or they don't care about those things.
Right.
Their friend group is kind of loose.
Yeah. And that's what he says. He says country, religion, family, ideas of civilization, all the sentimental and historical forces that stood between cosmic infinity and the individual, providing some notion of a place within the whole, have been rationalized and have lost their compelling force. America's experience not as a common project, but as a framework within which people are only individuals where they are left alone. I think that's very true. That's what the, I think, American dream, quote unquote, has become for a lot of people. It's just, you leave me alone, I do whatever I want, and you can't say anything about it. There's no culture, there's no society, there's just me and the person next to me, and there's no connection between the two of us. There's no relation there.
And I don't think you're a big fan, maybe you are, of Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk,
not particularly.
Well, I think he's picked up on something with the space travel. He views that as a manifest destiny.
Yeah.
As the human race, he views it as a planetary mission. And I think he's right though that we as humans need to keep expanding. I think we're becoming complacent and we don't have any big meaning anymore. Now I would say it should be closer to home. Like manifest destiny. Instead of go west, young man, you go south. We have Homestead.
Yeah.
If you would say to the American people, hey, we're gonna, we had this open border so everybody can come north. We're gonna open that border, and you can go south all the way to the Panama Canal. And if you secure 40 acres, have it surveyed, and it's yours. You need it. If we did that, it would be utterly chaos, and it would be violating international law and all that stuff. But how many thousands of people would actually do it?
Yeah.
I mean, we would, it would be probably end up being violent, but that's what happened with what we did to the Indians.
That's true. Yeah.
But I'm not advocating for this necessarily. But it's an interesting concept that after everything has been explored and there's no new land, so to speak, although I guess you could do that same type of national campaign to redevelop inner cities, because a lot of them are just really wastelands, and the cities will end up owning huge tracts of land because they just went. People lost them to tax sales.
Right.
They didn't even pay the taxes because they were worth less than the annual tax bill or whatever the case may be. They're abandoned properties. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
Of more systematic. I mean, you could just have homesteaders.
Yeah. Just set up a place like within the city, and if you take care of it, it's just yours.
Yeah, I mean, they had kind of like a lottery system from time to time, where you get these acres. Now they had a couple of them. It was like a land rush. They would say, on such and such a date at noon, they fire off, and there's huge crowds of people rushing west. You don't know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
I mean,
yeah.
You could, I guess, do the same thing, but that'd be dangerous. But you could have a lottery system and say, here, put your name in the hat, and for these, so many hundreds of acres, you get a 3 acre, one of the 3 acre lots.
Right.
I put money in for it.
I mean, why not?
Yes.
I like what he says, because he quotes Tocqueville here. He says, this is at the top of page 86, he says, they know the truth, speaking the young students, of Tocqueville's dictum that in democratic societies, each citizen is habitually busy with the contemplation of a very petty object, which is himself, a contemplation now intensified by a greater indifference to the past in the loss of a national view of the future than the common project engaging the youthful imagination is the exploration of space, which everyone knows to be empty. So he's talking, even when there was more interest in space exploration back in the 80s than there is now, although you are, like you said, you're seeing a resurgence of that. I still don't think there's that much interest in it, as there would have been, back in the 60s and 70s and everything.
60s and 70s for sure. 80s, they changed the focus to the shuttle.
Yeah.
And that was just an orbital.
Yeah.
Which was much different than going to the moon. Mm-hmm. And then we were sending these exploratory rockets or sensors to other places. I think now we all just kind of look at it and say, hey, that can't really happen. It's such a fantasy. It's like when people were saying, well, yeah, we can circumnavigate the globe back in the 1400s. Mm-hmm. It's like people didn't really believe it.
Yeah.
Can you really do that? Fall off the end or whatever. And so I think there's a lot of that, but I think once once a colony gets established, even if just a few people, and it's possible, I think perhaps then it can work, but it's so impractical now. It's so far off into the future. Yeah, I don't know if that can have the same resonating feel for people.
And I like what he says too, because one of the other problems is the dissolving of the family as well. And he gives a couple different reasons for that. I like what he says. He says parents, husbands, wives, and children are hostages to the community. He says like a lot of people feel like they can't be their own unique family. They can't set apart different values from everybody next to them. So you kind of have to just agree with whatever the sort of miasma is. And he also says divorce is also extremely prevalent. He says not only does it cause a lot of problems for the students, but then they lose any hope of like having marriage in the future. Because if their parents are divorced, well, why should I get married? Why should I start a family? Because that's just going to fall apart. And so it's like a compounding problem. Yes. The more people who are divorced, their children probably aren't as likely to get married, and if they do get married, they're more likely to get divorced and things like that. It's just keeps spiraling and multiplying each generation. Which is
funny because I think my generation was the first full generation that fully experienced no-fault divorce nationwide. So I was born in 1970, and so that was really implemented during my generation's childhood. And there were so many of our parents were divorced, and it kind of, you'd think that, well, maybe people will be more circumspect when they get married, so there'll be less divorce, or they'll be more circumspect of divorcing because of how negatively impacted them. And every one of them, everybody that came from a so-called broken home was troubled, at least for a period of time, in the breakup. And it was just so disruptive for various reasons. You'd think there would be less from the children of divorce, but it's more.
It's, the opposite.
It's the same thing with like single mothers. It's like, I guess you kind of, I guess we all kind of emulate our parents, whether we want to or not. But then I do like this kind of carried through with that, where he says, when a child goes away to college, it is really the beginning of the end of his vital connection with his family, though he scarcely realizes it at the time. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, especially I think he was even talking, he's talking about earlier in the paragraph about how we don't really take care of our parents in the home. We don't even consider bringing them in the home, and which I get, but I think that's a big negative for society writ large.
Oh, for sure.
And it's something our family's going to be faced with sooner or later. I'll say this. I mean, I don't know the practical realities of it, but even though she's my mother-in-law, I'll do whatever is reasonably appropriate to keep her out of a home. I mean, and that I mean that broadly. I'll make sacrifices for that because it's just my mom had dementia, and she had to be in a full-time care. I don't know if you ever remember visiting her. But,
I do, yeah.
That was not good.
Yeah,
it's not a good situation. But that's a little bit different in a way because she didn't even know who she was, let alone who I was or where she was for the last few years.
Right.
But there's so many people that are just left to fend their own. Now, having said that, there's so many boomers of her generation that kind of just abandoned their families.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's my money, I'm going to spend it. And so they've kind of broken that bond.
Yeah.
And so when they really get infirm, it's like, well, why wouldn't the family just warehouse you?
Right.
It's like, well, I hope you had fun spending the inheritance because
you bought a boat and 3 nice cars that you don't take out ever, and you kind of just look at them in the garage sometimes. It's like, I mean, I think it's a very common problem for sure.
It's the whole fracturing of that sense of obligation, which is a problem.
I have seen an uptick. I mean, in conservative circles, of course, like kind of. I don't know, dissatisfaction with the idea of the nuclear family. Like, I think for a long time, not as if it's like a bad thing, but as if it's like kind of a thing that was made up in the 50s, right? I mean, before that, you had You didn't have this concept of just the parents and the children, right? Living in
like
the home, like in the household. Yes.
It's too limiting.
Yes. Not that, you don't want your parents around, but that it's actually too limiting. You want more people around. And that's the way it was done for generations before that. And I think a lot of people sort of, fantasize about bringing back the good, strong nuclear family, which is a good step from bringing things back from single parent households and, divorced households and things like that. But maybe it shouldn't be the end goal just to stop there. Maybe we should have better connections where you do have more people at least living close to you, if not in the same house. But I think it's much better for families if the whole family is nearby in some way.
Yeah, I do see a lot of that though in a rural community.
Oh yeah,
where the parents will have a plot of land, and as the children get married and have their own kids, they subdivide it.
Yeah,
and you'll have I won't mention names. But there's local
the compound,
family. Yeah, that's there's like how many?
You have the grandparents and the family and the cousins.
Yeah. Well, counting all the children, 532. So there's still a lot of that going on. But like in a metropolitan area,
right.
Well, it's not practical. It's not financially practical to a certain degree, and you all have to kind of to live a certain, be able to want to live a certain lifestyle within a metropolitan area,
right.
which a lot of people want to get out of that, but
right.
it's a challenge.
Right.
We'll be going forward anyway.
Right. I like what he says too, because he says basically everything's open for these students, for these young people. He says they can be anything they want to be, but they have no particular reason to want to be anything in particular. Not only are they free to decide their place, but they're also free to decide whether they will believe in God or be atheists, or leave their options open by being agnostic, whether they be straight or gay, or again keep their options open. And he goes on. He's like all of these things that would have been just like natural to us, that would have been like, well, this is not really a changeable characteristic of who I am unless something very, very drastic happens. Like, well, now all of these are just options. In the same way that you could, choose what you want for lunch, you can choose what religion you are today. And he says that's just a complete breakdown of how all of societal bonds have been for years. And it's just a very strange thing that's developed in sort of the modern culture, that all of these things are kind of treated as trivial. Yeah.
And you see a lot of, I've seen a lot of dysfunction like in independent churches too, because they have, like the membership will sour on a minister. And so a bunch of people will go to another church or they'll have to fire the minister and get a new minister in. And that's, I used to appreciate it more when I was younger, but then I'm like, because, the Catholic Church is so structured and there's like no way to get rid of a priest. I mean, there just isn't. Good, bad, or indifferent, especially if they're bad. It's like they will never go. But there's something for that uncompromising nature of the Catholic Church that I think is what kind of is resonating with people now. But,
I mean, I've joked about that with my Protestant friends. I've called it like church shopping. And you go like window shopping. It's like, well, I don't like the pastor here. Or the people, this greeter was mean to me at this one place. And it's like, well, you should be determining what church you go to based on more than that. I mean, it's like it can be an entirely different theological system. I mean, of course, most non-denominational churches are just vaguely Baptist anyway, so it probably won't differ too much from church to church in those settings. But I've seen people be like, well, I don't know if I'm a Lutheran, I don't know if I'm a Baptist, I don't know if I'm a Methodist or an Episcopalian. It's like, well, those are pretty big differences, and it's like there's more to it than just like the style of the church or whoever's preaching that day. It's like those are deep theological things, and I mean, I don't think the Protestant history is anywhere near as deep or as long as Catholic history, of course, but even those have hundreds of years of theology developed at this point, and it's like, well, that's not something you just pick up lightly, or you shouldn't pick up lightly. Of course, many people do, but
true. Yeah, good points.
Thank you.
Well, it's I've developed this theory that, and I've seen it in action a few times, especially with people like about around my age that fall away, so to speak, from the Catholic Church. And I found, and I've been accused of being egotistical.
Really?
And opinionated.
When? Who said that?
But I've noticed that the people who have these imposed, or they have like chosen to criticize the church for various little minor misdeeds, I found that they're really egotistical people. It's like they want to substitute their version of what God should be for what God is. And certainly a Christian God or a Catholic philosophy God, would not be wanting to hurt anyone that is a sinner. Mm-hmm. But that kind of, Jesus is not going to celebrate them.
Yeah.
I mean, like especially with the sexual morality, it's like the whole big thing. Well, I can't support this priest because he wouldn't. Well, I remember it happened so often. They'd say, "Well, I was so upset and I didn't go back to church because the priest wouldn't marry my son." I said, "Well, was your son a Catholic?" Well, he was baptized and he was confirmed.
Yeah.
When's the last time he went to church? Well, he doesn't go to church.
Yeah.
And he says he's not Catholic. I'm like, well, the priest isn't supposed to marry him if they're not Catholic.
Yeah.
You can't have a Catholic wedding.
Yeah. That's not the priest just deciding that because he doesn't like your son. Like, that's just how marriage works. Marriage is a sacrament within the church.
It's a sacrament. Yeah. It's like, well, that's not a problem that you have with the priest or the religion. It's a problem you have with the son.
Yeah.
And it's that egotism. Well, I get to decide. Well, I kind of don't.
Yeah.
On some major important issues.
Yeah. I saw this clip of this podcast came up on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. These two people just talking. I don't know why I was watching it, but it's clearly they were not practicing Christian people at all. The one guy was baptized Catholic. He was telling a story about like how he went to church because there was a funeral or something, and so he's going to a Catholic church, and he goes up to the priest for communion. He hadn't been in years, and he didn't know what to say when the body of Christ, and you say, Amen.
Yeah, it's
and so
pretty
he
easy,
didn't know what to say, and he said like "Peace be with you" or something.
Lord.
And then he got so offended that like the priest covered the dish and like gave him a blessing and like told him to move out of the way. He's like, how could he ever do that? And let's like why would he do that to me? And it's I come back to church for this, and it's like, well, when was the last time you've been? Have you been to confession at all in the past year? Like, there's things you have to do before you receive the Eucharist. And it's like, it's not just a piece of bread that they hand you as a snack.
I think it would have been, I wish his partner in that podcast would know to ask him, well, what is it? What is the Eucharist?
Yeah.
There's no way you get that answer right.
Right. Because it's like, you should know that before you go up there and then get offended. It's like you're getting offended and you don't even know what the church is or what these things are that you're offended that you're not getting.
Yeah, but I wanted the toy from the party. It's like a little kid. It's like, well, I didn't get a balloon. Everybody else got a balloon. I didn't get a balloon. Well, you were a brat, so you don't get a balloon.
Did you say happy birthday? Did you,
Did you sing it?
sing it?
Very, very strange.
Yes.
All right, and which kind of leads us into the equality discussion where he says, in addition to their self-ironical niceness, the other striking quality of these students is their egalitarianism. And that's like militant egalitarianism, as you know, probably better than I do.
Oh, yeah.
But it's kind of goes hand in hand with the niceness. It's like, we can't judge anybody else. We're all equals,
right?
Except for the ones that aren't equal,
right?
All those judgmental people that we hate.
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, I know we talked about that in the moral relativism book.
Yes.
I mean, that was the big theme of that is like, well, you can be nice and everybody's equal, except for those people who don't think you can be equal.
Yes.
Then we hate them and they're evil. And it's like, well, because that's the bottom line of, I think most modern like popular morality is everybody's an individual. Everybody can do whatever they want. And the only thing that's wrong is telling people that you can't do whatever you want.
Correct.
That is the sin for I think the modern era.
Yeah. And it's not nice to tell somebody that they're a sinner, which I understand.
Yeah.
They make them feel bad. But is it really nice? It's like that tough love or whatever you want to call it. But nobody believes in tough love anymore.
Right. He says, I like this quote. He says, these kids just do not have prejudices against anyone.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's like nobody really cares that much about identity, about, where you're from, really too much. I mean, he goes on a little bit later. I don't know if the race section is in this chapter. I think it might be.
Yeah, I think so.
He says like they do care about it in different ways though.
That's the next one.
Right? It's like they've just sort of substituted the thing itself just for the label in some ways. And I think that's very true in modern society. It's like, well, you hear so many people, well, I was baptized Catholic, so I can still claim to be a Catholic and things like that. Or I was, born in, the city, so I'm still a city person, even though you don't really have anything tying you to that place or that religion or your family or anything really. It's just you're kind of keeping the label, but not really caring much about, the substance of the thing.
Yes. Well, he does, like the last paragraph in this one, which is funny. Then he goes into the race,
right?
Which is kind of contradicted by the egalitarianism, but I guess he's really making the exception.
Right.
But he says the lack of prejudice is a result of the students failing to see differences and of the gradual eradication of differences. When students talk about one another, one almost never hears them saying things that divide others into groups or kinds. They always speak about the individual. The sensitivity to national character, sometimes known as stereotyping, has disappeared. And in some respects, it's good, but I would say I have highlighted here, my comments are not now, because we've gone past that, and now we're back into the new segregation,
right?
And the new everybody's part of a category,
right?
Even more categories than there were before,
right?
Including made-up categories,
right? Because his main point, we're kind of getting into the race section now, is that really with the rise of affirmative action, everybody else, besides the black population on the universities, everybody else is completely egalitarian. A white person sees an Asian person the same way that they see a Jewish person or a Hispanic person or whatever. But the black people, he kind of makes the argument that they self-segregate on college campuses, that they form their own independent societies. They want to be away from everybody else. And I think he's kind of wrong at this point now about the other groups, because I think now all of the other groups have done the same thing. And so it's now not even that first premise is true. Now it's everybody has split into their same thing, except for the white people. Yeah. The white people cannot have their clubs, but everybody else can have clubs. I mean, I can't even...
Because you have the Hispanic Association, you've got the African American, or you've got all sorts of different categories of clubs.
And it's not even just that. It's not just like, well, here's the Hispanic club, here's this club, but it's for every independent major, every possible field of study. Well, you have... a club for the engineers, but then you also have the club for the Hispanic engineers, for the Asian American engineers, the Pacific Islander engineers, and especially going down to Florida, just with being a huge bigger campus, school with 60,000 people, and a lot of those are, international students or things like that. Like, it legitimately is like that, where there is a distinct group for every possible field of study and every possible topic for each race. And it's like across the board.
I think, I have a philosophical, categorical dislike of dual citizenship. I don't like it at all. I don't think that should be allowed, and I don't care what justification you have for it, but I don't think you should have dual citizenship. You're either an American citizen or you're not an American citizen. There's two categories. Yeah. And I have the same view of these groups. So if you're going to be in the Hispanic engineering club, then you can't be in the engineering club. Okay, you've chosen. Right. You're the Hispanic engineers.
Right.
And everybody that's okay with everybody being an engineer is in the engineering club.
Yes.
But if you want to self-select into some smaller group that you want to exclude everybody from it, fine. That's you. But you're no longer the general engineering club because you've excluded yourself from a general club. Right. You say, well, I should be in the general club, and then we also have this other thing because I'm both. Right. Well, no, you can't be both. You're either with everybody or you're in your little segregated group. That's my. I now have a new edict that if I were dictator, I would pronounce and enforce.
Right. Right.
If I were a college president, I would want a list of all the membership of all the clubs, and I would kick out all the people that were in more than one racial club. You got to pick one. And for all those multiracial people, pick one.
There you go.
Unless there's one that's a multiracial group.
And you can stay in that one. You can stay in that one. Yeah, but you can't be in the others.
Yeah, pick one.
I like how he describes sort of the rise of affirmative action here. Yes. Because he talks about that, and his point is, he says, at Cornell, he says, at the beginning of the 1967 academic year, there were many more blacks on campus, and of course, in order to get so many, particularly poor blacks, standards of admission had silently and drastically been altered. Nothing had been done to prepare these students for the great intellectual and social challenges awaiting for them in the university. Cornell now had a large number of students who were manifestly unqualified and unprepared, and therefore it faced an inevitable choice: fail most of them or pass them without their having learned. And he says that's really the problem that's facing the black population on these campuses, is that, well, you might have gotten in on the merits, but now there's kind of this recognition that the system has been changed, that nobody's going to take you seriously.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge detriment.
Well, did you just get here based on your race? Did you get here because the university wanted to check a box? Did you get here because your professor didn't feel like he could fail you, because that would open up a bunch of problems with you discriminating against certain students?
Or are you here on merits competitively?
Right.
You know, because nobody can know.
Right.
And so I think they ought to have to wear a cap You know, or some sort of emblem.
Where's this going?
No, like if you're in affirmative action, you got in because of your race or some characteristics that it's not just you're an excellent student and one of the best people in here. You ought to have, it ought to be disclosed so everybody can treat you nicer. You know? Oh yeah, because you didn't have to struggle. You know, you're not as competent as the rest of us, so that we know the population of the people that got here on the merits, which are going to be some of the same people in physical appearance,
right?
But it denigrates the entire group,
right?
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. It's like it degrades the value of it. Now I think we've gotten so post affirmative action that they've lowered the standard. It's like it used to be, and Thomas Sowell was big on this. It's like, okay, you're setting them up for failure because they're not qualified to be there. They would have been 100% qualified for a tier 2 school.
Right. That's what we talked about in the Thomas Sowell book.
And so then they can excel at tier 2 and be excellent students and develop at that pace and then go on to a great career. And he's saying those people will be flunking out because they were put in an academic situation they couldn't handle because they weren't qualified. I don't know that it's true anymore because the standards have denigrated so much at the top schools that I think everybody can just coast. Right. I think the hard part is getting in.
And I think that's one of the big problems with, because I mean, I think the problem just keeps making itself worse and worse.
Yes.
I think a lot of the administrative positions in a lot of the universities were created kind of for that purpose.
Yes.
It's because you have so many people now with college degrees from really big name schools that maybe don't have the right, education. Then all of a sudden, well, where are you going to put these people? Put them back in the university in all these administrative positions or in the government in those administrative positions because it's just there's so many of them.
Well, the best way to get a raise is to get a promotion to supervising other people. So what you want to do is you want to add staff. So like if it's just you and one other person, what you want to do is them to hire 2 more people and then make you the supervisor of the 3.
Right.
Because if it's just you and one other person, you're not really a supervisor. But you get 2 more people. So it's like you build that up and you're like, hey, you guys, you 3 that work for me or you 4 that work for me, you all need staff. And now I'm not a first level manager. Now I'm a supervisor of a manager who supervises other people. None of you are getting any work done.
But it makes sense because you have a degree from Harvard. So of course you should be in a supervisor position. I mean, that's fitting for your degree. And I really like what he says because he says the way this came about was really from the Black Power movement. He says Black Power, which hit the universities like a tidal wave at just that moment, provided a third way. He's talking about integrationism. Should you segregate? Should you integrate? And he says integrationism was just an ideology for whites and Uncle Toms who says that what universities teach is the truth rather than just the myths necessary to support the system of domination. He says, well, they've just created this ideology based on relativism and Marxism that says, well, no, of course you shouldn't believe what the university teaches. Of course you should be separate from the rest of the population because that's just the tool of the white people.
Yes.
And so, of course, you should be separate from all of them. And so it's like with this weird, rise of the Black Power movement, now you've just recreated a self-segregation. And he says that's just really the prevailing thing that he's seeing at a lot of these universities.
Yes. Yeah, it's a real tragedy. And I guess in fairness, some people were really trying to help fix the problem, such as it was. But I think if they would have left it alone a little bit longer, it would have healed itself. If we would have just not had the affirmative action for like 20 more years, you would have seen it level out.
Yeah.
Because I think with people being more egalitarian and more accepting of other people, it would have occurred, I think, naturally from the bottom up. It just takes time. Now, part of the problem with academic success is that the inner city schools, predominantly African American or minority or people of color, are so dysfunctional. It's hard to have a population in college that is commensurate with the population percentage as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for them to academically achieve when their entire elementary and secondary education system is completely dysfunctional.
Right.
You have to fight through that. I don't know what the solution to that is, but I think that would be the counter argument to my argument that it would work itself out. Well, how does it work itself out if that foundation, early childhood education through 12th grade is not working? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But maybe someday we'll fix it.
And then he moves on.
With all the charter schools. I mean, that's a major change. And that one big, beautiful bill is going to expand it.
Right.
Bigly.
Bigly.
Bigly in the next year.
Glad it's not Smalley.
No, it's Bigly.
Bigly. That's good. That's good.
I think it's accurate.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's a hopeful sign there.
Yes.
Anything
Moving
else?
on to sex.
Yes. Do you have any other thoughts on the race section?
No.
Yeah,
No,
but
I think he makes a good description of the of how the system that it was purported to reduce racism is probably exacerbated
Right.
in a lot of meaningful ways.
right.
Sad.
Yeah. But then the next section.
Yes.
The next section, I think, might be the longest in this chapter here, which is largely about the sexual revolution.
Yes.
Takes up the next 11 pages or so. And this is really, I think, similar to his discussion of the freedom and the self-centeredness.
Yes.
Is that now you don't have any sort of principles, any sort of guiding boundaries for what the proper nature of the sexual relation should be. It's just you do whatever you want. And he says the sexual revolution marched under the banner of freedom, feminism under that of equality. Although they went arm in arm for a while, their differences eventually put them at odds with each other, as Tocqueville said freedom and equality would always be. This is manifest in the squabble over pornography, which pits liberated sexual desire against feminist resentment about stereotyping. And so this is part of this discussion where he says, well, feminism and the sexual liberation movement are fundamentally opposed. And I think he's
That was interesting.
gotten that wrong. I mean,
So?
I think if their ideologies are actually followed, I think they are opposed.
We in third wave feminism, or we in fourth wave feminism?
I don't know how they classify them.
But there have been significant changes
Yes.
in feminism itself, and I think the generation that came after the feminism he's talking about is different.
Yeah.
So-
Because, I guess, back in 1987, maybe the feminists were very anti-pornography, everything like that.
Yeah.
Because now all the people that I hear that are self-proclaimed feminists, they're all sex work is real work people, let everybody do whatever they want, that's empowering for women. That's what I see from a lot of feminists.
If that's the current feminism, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's different than when I was your age. Feminism was definitely anti-pornography, anti-sex trade.
Okay.
They saw that as exploitive of women 100%. And especially there was a big movement to expose what they called so-called Johns. So they a lot of times back like in the 80s, they would arrest the prostitutes thinking the prostitutes were the problem because they're out in the street corners and it's kind of a nuisance issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a big push to arrest and publicize the customers to try to put an end to it, embarrass them, and because it was businessmen or whoever, priests that were getting caught up in this, and before that this movement, a lot of times they would just be released, but the prostitutes would be arrested. Because they're like, well, who's committing the crime? And the feminists back in the day were like, well, the men are, because they're abusing these poor, literally poor women, drug addicts, people that have been abused and sex trafficked. So, yeah, it's weird to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess
it's so false. Yeah,
yeah. What I'm saying is false, or just that their ideology is false.
Their ideology.
Yes.
Not you.
I was about to say, I think the shift then is abortion. Then is what I think would lead to that. With the co-opting of abortion. Abortion, I think, has kind of always been a feminist issue.
Feminists are always in favor of abortion.
But I think then the narrative has shifted on that so much that it's, abortion is good because it's freeing the woman up to use her own body. No one can tell her what to do with her own body.
That is true.
And I think that transfers over to the pornography issue. Well, if women can do whatever they want with their bodies, then they should be free to do pornography. And that's actually noble if they do, because they're freeing themselves from all these restraints.
Yes.
I think that might have been what crossed that bridge over the past 30 years, maybe. Because that's what I've heard. Everybody who's called themselves a feminist that I've seen has been super on board with those sorts of issues. And I've seen people make that exact argument, like supporting OnlyFans. That, OnlyFans, the online pornography website, anybody can just upload anything, and it's despicable.
I think it's been a real improvement to American society.
You think so? But the argument is,
hey, Mommy, what are those pictures on the internet? Or what? That's a conversation.
That's going to happen in 20 years.
10 years. Yeah. 10 years. It's every middle school boy is going to say, your mom was an OnlyFans model too? Yes.
Yeah, disgusting. But But the argument is that I've seen from some like self-proclaimed feminists as well, women weren't allowed to make money on their own for so long, and they were kept out of, having their own bank accounts for so long. This is really rectifying that issue because now women are being able to use, what they have and make money and do their own thing and become entrepreneurs and enter the workforce in a way unique to them. That isn't, that kind of excludes men. It's like getting back at them.
Yeah.
And it's like we're leveling the playing field with pornography. And
Perhaps in
it's really
5
weird.
years we can get near unanimous agreement to nuke the internet and all social media. Because
I wouldn't be opposed.
Because those chickens are going to come home to roost, and I think that we might have a super majority of people that are like, let's just get rid of everything that's not a book.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of all images.
Yeah.
And all social media. It's just, I know it's like the First Amendment and everything, but I guess you could amend the Constitution.
Yeah.
I'm 100% in favor of nuking all social media, and I don't know how to do it legally. Although I think I've told you my pet idea is you demonetize the entire thing by insisting that information about personally identifiable information is owned by the person and cannot be sold and cannot be waived and cannot be transferred to anybody else.
Yeah.
So that would demonetize Google. It would demonetize Facebook because if you're not paying for the service, you're not a customer, you're the product. Right. And so Facebook, they're just collecting data on you. Google, they're just collecting data on you. And so if they can't monetize that, if they can't share that information with advertisers or to benefit advertisers or sell that information to advertise to people, then you kneecap the entire industry.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it goes poof.
Right.
They have no value.
Right. Well, I've seen a lot of pushes, like actually, politically, in favor of more heavily restricting pornography and outright banning it in many cases. I mean, I know Hawley has been working bills like that.
They've shut a few of them down indirectly in 2 or 3 states by requiring
the age verification,
with driver license and all that. So the companies have pulled out of the state altogether.
Which is really disgusting because that implies that a lot of their base, they think they just won't have a lot of traffic because they're relying on children.
Well, that, and I think a lot of men don't want to give that kind of identifiable information.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're probably, certainly talking about 99% men customers.
Right.
Anyway, back to where he was.
Right. Because then he says, really, on page 99, he says there's a weird sort of shift in the perception of like the sexual liberation movement.
Yeah.
He talks about it, as this lion behind the doors, and as soon as you open the door, it's going to unleash itself in this sort of big wave of energy. And he says, well, it's really just this kind of domesticated cat.
Yeah.
He says, it's supposed to really, rejuvenate things or see as this really big, passionate movement. But now most people are just like, we don't really care. Because now everything's so freely accessible. It's like there's no real interest in that sort of ideology anymore. It's like, well, maybe it is liberating in some ways, like those this sort of very radical feminists I was talking about, but most people are like, well, everybody does it. I don't really care.
Yeah.
What does it matter to me that much anymore?
Yeah, it's I think the asexual movement is going to pick up steam.
Yeah.
People are just getting fed up with it.
Yeah.
It's like we're just walking away. The walking away movement. But he talks like on 100. It was interesting. He says, feminism is in accord with and encourages many elements of the sexual revolution, but uses them to different ends. This is where I thought he was really interesting. He said, libertinism allows for what even Rousseau called the greatest pleasure. But in making sex easy, it can trivialize, de-eroticize, and demystify sexual relationships. And I think that's 100% on the target. It's devaluing it. And by making it, it's just like anything. It's like devaluing the money supply.
Right.
When the Federal Reserve pumps $1 trillion into our economy of cash from ether,
right?
It devalues the currency. The same thing, I think, with sexual interactions. It just demystifies it and just devalues the entire process. And I think people are less interested. But maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know. But I think he makes a really interesting point there.
Yeah, he says he moves on because he's still talking about that. I mean, that is interesting. And he kind of expands on that in 101. He says, central to the feminist project is the suppression of modesty, in which the sexual revolution played a critical preparatory role, just as capitalism and the Marxist scheme prepared the way for socialism by tearing the sacred veils from the shroud of feudal chivalry. So he gives that's an example as where they're united, where the libertinism and the feminism is like, well, modesty is this outdated conception. It's putting women down. I think that's another one of the things that bridges the gap between the two that I was talking about, if not just abortion and sort of all the arguments related to that.
Well, there's always been a strong connection between men wanting to exploit women and the feminists that facilitate it.
Yeah.
So like back in the 60s, they used to they'd have these big protests where they'd have burn your bra. So they'd burn their bra and they'd be braless because it's just inhibiting us or whatever. And there's always creepy dudes. Yeah, burn your bra. And it's like the same thing with the OnlyFans. Yeah, get on OnlyFans. Oh, you're so disgusting. Yeah. But it just provides them access they wouldn't otherwise have. Right. And it's like the most dangerous sexual perverts and sexual assaulters out there now are the male feminists. Right. You know, like if one of your friends who's a girl has a friend who's a male feminist, watch out. That's the most dangerous guy. You get like a super masculine dude, she's probably safe as can be, but you get her around a male feminist, it's just despicable.
Yeah. Have you seen that Harry Sisson guy, or how we pronounce his name, Sisson? He's like one of the new...
He's like an influencer on the left.
Right.
And he was like getting these chicks to send him nudes.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's like one of the big... he's supposed to be the big Democrat Gen Z talking head where he's, talking to the young people and stuff like that. And he's supposed to be the cool, new hip feminist type guy. And it's like, that's exactly what happened.
100%.
And you just see that just all over the place. It's ridiculous.
Like every charismatic religious leader / cult leader always ends up screwing all the women, every single time. It always ends up, oh, come meditate with me. Oh yeah, you don't need those clothes holding you back. It's so stereotypical,
right?
And it's so reprehensible, but it's just what it is.
Right.
Over and over again, just rinse, repeat.
And he draws a connection. I was going to say, because he draws the connection between Plato's Republic here. He says that was one of the big examples of, or one of the big steps that need to be done if you want to have a perfectly egalitarian society that Socrates describes. He says you need to do away with modesty. Yeah. And he also says, I think this is really interesting, you need equal treatment for women in the military as well. And that's something that's kind of happened now. And I've seen some conservatives turn against that, saying that we shouldn't have women in the military.
We shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think so at all.
I mean, we have, officially they're not in any combat roles.
Right.
Except for maybe some pilots that travel into combat zones.
Right.
But yeah, it's that's where the rubber hits the road with the feminists. Like, are you really in favor of that?
Right. Do you want to sign women up for the draft? It's like, probably not. Probably not.
But I don't know why they aren't.
Yeah, I mean on that logic, yeah.
I mean they're not. They're not. You can't give them less money for the same job legally.
Right.
Why aren't they going on the front lines? Why don't we have a battalion of babes?
That'll show them.
No, of women.
Right.
Like I can see not having them in the same units, although some units will have women in them. But of course, been documented problems with that. But of course, there's different. But the very nature of human interactions, women are at a particular risk that men aren't of the same risk.
Right.
Meaning that men have a really low likelihood of being a victim of sexual assault outside of prison.
Right.
And for some reason, it's condoned in prison, informally. It's not legally condoned, but socially it is, which I think is a big tragedy in our country, has been for decades. But there is that,
right.
And especially if we're fighting a different culture,
right?
There's cultures. Golly, I would not want to be captured if I were a woman.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I've actually talked about this with Molly before.
Oh really?
And one of my big problems with it isn't even just the practicality of it. Women are statistically not as strong as men, things like that. I just don't like the idea that in a war situation, I wouldn't want women dying for the men in the country. I don't think that's what women should be doing. We should not be sending out women to die if there are men available to fight. I think that's fundamental. It's just we are different people. We are different kinds of people, and that is not what women should be doing.
Well, and I mean, if you want to talk about it from a purely utilitarian view, you don't need as many men.
That's true.
As they, in order to propagate the species. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
That was if you ever see Dr. Strangelove, they have this long debate about how many men should survive the nuclear holocaust, which is really funny. Yeah, there's something just on a basic human level that would be offensive to me. Like if we were really at a total war, and they're like, I'm old, so I would not be drafted. I couldn't even probably enlist because I'm 55 and fat or whatever. But I would really not be happy with some 20-year-old girls going to women, going off to fight and die. Yeah. For me to stay back at home and do what? Right. I mean, I should be ahead of the line before them. Right. If nothing else is a distraction or cannon fodder. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like, well, I could be a suicide bomber. I might not move as fast, but I can still pull the trigger. Right. You know, I mean, so yeah, 100% in agreement. And some of it, I don't know. I haven't really thought that out, but logically.
Because, I mean, that's the end of war. I mean, that's what you train soldiers to do, is to fight and kill for the people who stay home. Yes. I do not think it is right for us to be training women to fight or be killed in war for the men of the country.
I haven't really given it much thought.
Because I mean, I think that's really what we're doing. It's
well, if you ask any male feminist, he'd be
okay with that.
He'd be okay with me staying back.
I will just say one more point on the book. I know you've closed your book, but I think
I'm tired. It's late.
Yes. Well, he ends this section, I think, with another good point, kind of humanities focus, because he says what you're seeing now also in the classroom, bringing it back to education, is now once you've lost these ideas of what sex is and what race is and things like that, people don't understand literature anymore. You don't understand the point. You don't understand the point of a lot of these female characters, of the relational dynamics in a lot of these stories, because that's just not something that's in your worldview anymore. Yes. Like, you have to teach them how to think, 100 years ago, how things were thought about back then. And he says that's one of the big problems facing, education today, is now even our own culture 100 years ago is a foreign culture to many people. And that's a really big problem.
And the writing for movies and TV are so false when they're dealing with male characters. Because
I've heard these rants many times.
What? What's this rant?
I thought you were talking about women fighting in movies and things like that.
Yes. That's a whole different rant.
Okay. Sorry, I won't get you started on that one. I thought that's where that was going.
I can go with those scenes where like a 110-pound woman is fighting a 250-pound muscular man. Right. If the premise of the woman is she has a superpower, like she's from another planet or taking some potion, or supernatural powers. But if it's just Black Widow, who's like a Russian, that's her superpower. I think that she was abused and was very violent as a kid or something, and she's flipping these guys. Yeah, and that was just, I just can't get past that. Right. I can't even remember what my original point was.
You're talking about the men in the writing.
Well, yeah, the dialogue. Yes. Like, they don't talk like men. Right. They don't act like men, because the men who write it aren't real men, it seems like. or they're written by women, or they're rewritten. Right. And there's no real discussion. I mean, there's some movies are still pretty good. But like, there's one scene in that one movie. It's Ben Affleck and the guy that plays the arrow shooter in the Marvel movies. What's his name?
Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner. Where it's where they're criminals and Ben. You'll know what I'm talking about because it's like a meme. He says, "Hey, I need your help. I can't tell you about what we're gonna do, but we're gonna hurt some people, and we can never talk about it again." And Jeremy Renner's character waits and says, "Whose car are we gonna take?" That kind of like, I'm up for it, whatever. It's like shorthand for, that's like the most loyal friend you'd ever have, right? And I think there's something about men that they could do that for each other, which is probably not ideal because they could hurt people or whatever and commit crimes. But that's like an exception that kind of proves the rule with a lot of these other movies. They're such girly men, and they're just such, I don't know. It's not real. It's like they haven't lived. Like if I'm reading a biography now about Charles Grodin, which is a really funny book. Haven't completed it yet. But the guy had worked jobs. Like he was a working class. A lot of the people that are writers or entertainers now
have never worked,
really worked. Like never had a blue collar, aren't from blue collar family.
Right.
Aren't from the Midwest. And they just don't even understand it.
Right.
They have no concept of what somebody in a small town in Missouri or Kentucky or Arkansas, what would happen if they saw some black guy getting beat up on the street corner.
Right.
You know, they would see red, or like they would not tolerate racial violence like that. They would not tolerate somebody accosting a woman on a street corner.
Right.
They would put themselves in the middle of it instinctively or irrationally. It's not going to happen on their watch. And the funny thing about the whole Me Too movement, to kind of segue back into the feminism thing, is all they did was ultimately, the reason why it petered out is because all the perpetrators were liberal male feminists. Every single one of them.
Right.
I mean, there's not an exception
Right.
at all. You can Google it. Me Too movement, who got stung, who went to prison, Harvey Weinstein, all these other people, every single one of them was more leftist than the rest.
Right.
There wasn't a single devout Christian conservative, many of them, mainstream personality that got busted under those.
Right.
It was all leftists.
Right.
Because, when that happened, I started realizing no wonder why these liberal women hate men. Because all the men they know are terrible.
Yeah.
You know, they're out there raping these women. You know, they're like, oh, you want to roll? Well, come over here and do blah, blah, blah.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Right.
That would, I mean, in our culture, if we knew a guy like that, he's out.
Oh, yeah.
He's out of the
absolutely
group.
not. Yeah.
And what would happen if one of your friends said, "Oh yeah, I got her to do"? You'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here! I'm never talking to you again. You know, don't get near me, and don't talk to my sister.
Yeah.
You know, what I mean, like
At minimum, I mean, there's a good chance you'd be fighting that person very quickly. Yeah.
So I think there's a disconnect there between what I call small town culture in America, which is still vibrant and hopefully will still survive all this.
Right.
And that's really the Trump revolution is like, okay, fine.
Right.
We're done being nice. We're just going to be honest and try to make it change.
Right.
So.
I will say, to bring in Tolkien, because you mentioned that I should, I think he really gets, talking about writing different characters, I think he understood that.
Yes.
And he got a lot of flack, actually, or he gets modern flack. Sometimes I know there's at least one person who asked him the question, why didn't you have more women in your stories? And his response was, well, I felt like I'd be doing them a disservice. You know, I could write a couple good women, but I'm not a woman, and it would take some effort for me to really write how a woman would act. And I think the women that are in his stories are very good.
Yes.
You have, Galadriel and Éowyn and Luthien and the Silmarillion and a few others that are pretty prominent characters. They're very well written.
Yes.
But of course, the majority of them are men, and that's he's criticized for that a lot by modern feminists. But he really gets the distinction, right? He knows how to write for each character, and he goes even farther because he has all those different types of characters, the races of characters, the hobbits and the elves. He could really distinctly tell that he knows how to write each particular person, and he does a very, very good job of each of those. And that's something you see. But his point about literature there is like if you're living in a culture that knows all of those differences, you can write them much, much better, and you can understand
it
them
like shorthand.
Yes, exactly,
Because you'll have the common culture.
Right.
Yes,
right.
Agreed. Good point.
Thank you.
Way to bring it back in.
Yes. Well, that is about halfway through this chapter. Next time we'll talk about separateness, divorce, love, and eros. Next time. Eros. Do you have any other final thoughts for this episode? All right. Well, this has been Season 12, Episode 4 of Unlimited Opinions. I've been Adam Bishop.
Still Mark Bishop.
And you can, of course, follow us on Twitter at ULMTD Opinions.